What if everything you think is your own choice was actually placed there without you noticing? There's a type of control that doesn't use shouting or threats. It doesn't tell you what to do. It just whispers, and you obey without even knowing. This type of manipulation is silent, invisible, and precisely for that reason, the most dangerous of all. It acts slowly in your daily life, disguised as opinion, advice, or information. And when you realize it, you're already acting exactly as someone planned. This video will open your eyes to the most subtle and most used form of mind manipulation. And the scariest part is that this is nothing new. Machiavelli knew this centuries ago. He didn't talk about shouting to gain power, but about smiling while controlling everything behind the curtains. And today, this strategy is everywhere. Are you ready to see it? Oh, and don't forget to check if the notification bell is activated. That way you won't miss any of our upcoming videos. Silent manipulation is the most subtle and dangerous form of control there is. And the scariest part, it doesn't need shouting, it doesn't use threats, and it doesn't even need to force you to do anything. It simply guides you without you noticing. You feel like you're making decisions on your own, but in reality, you're just reacting to something that was carefully planned for you. Imagine you're scrolling through social media. The algorithm shows you posts that align with your beliefs. You think you're choosing what you want to see, but in fact, it's the algorithm deciding what appears for you based on data about what captures your attention and keeps you engaged. The same happens with what you buy, what you read, what you watch. This is the kind of silent manipulation that Machiavelli studied deeply. He didn't talk about direct manipulation, where someone tells you what to do. No, Machiavelli understood that real power lies in influencing someone's decisions without them even noticing. He knew that whoever controls a person's choices controls that person. And that's exactly what happens in our world today. Companies, governments, even people around us use Machiavellian techniques to influence our decisions, but they do it so silently that we often don't even notice. The secret is that silent manipulation doesn't face resistance because you don't even know you're being manipulated. Unlike other forms of control where resistance may arise, in this type of manipulation, you end up accepting it because you think you're making the choice yourself. Machiavelli, in his book, The Prince, already spoke about the power of influencing without being noticed. He said that whoever controls people's perception controls their actions. Men forget more quickly the death of their father than the loss of their inheritance, he wrote. This shows us that for him, perception was everything. Have you ever found yourself doing something and later realized you didn't really want to do it? How did it feel to realize you were being guided without noticing? Comment below, share your experience. I really want to know how you deal with these situations. When you see something that interests you, you think it was your choice, but it was all calculated to attract you. You think you're making decisions, but in reality, you're just reacting. This is silent manipulation in action. You react to the stimuli around you without realizing those stimuli were planned to influence you. For example, when you enter an online store, you may think you're choosing what to buy, but the site uses algorithms that know what you've bought in the past, what you've looked at, and even what you left in your cart. They show products based on this behavior, and without realizing it, you end up buying something you never imagined. You're not the one choosing. It's the algorithm guiding you based on your past actions. The same happens with fake news. They don't appear with an obvious headline yelling, "You must believe this." They appear subtly, often as incomplete, or partial information that feeds your beliefs or fears. You believe them because you were already predisposed to accept them, even if you didn't realize it. That's where the true strength of silent manipulation lies. It doesn't fight you. It doesn't shout. It simply shapes your perception so smoothly that you don't notice you're being controlled. And when you finally realize it, it's already too late. You've already made decisions, already acted based on what was placed in front of you, without even knowing you were being manipulated. Machiavelli knew this. He didn't talk about physical control, about chaining someone up. He talked about controlling the mind, about becoming so invisible that power would be in your hands without others even knowing they were being guided. For Machiavelli, true power does not impose. It disguises itself. And today, we are being manipulated in such a subtle way that we often don't even notice. The truth is that silent manipulation is effective because it doesn't create resistance. You don't feel like you're being manipulated because what's shown to you is exactly what you already wanted to see. You're not being forced into anything. You're simply being guided toward what others want you to do. And the worst part, you think you're making the choices on your own. And that's why it's so dangerous. It doesn't force you. It doesn't yell at you. It simply shapes you. You may think you're being independent, but in reality, you're just reacting to others' choices. Machiavelli, with his sharp and calculating vision, understood the human mind like no one else. He knew that the greatest power is invisible power, the kind that silently controls everything without being noticed. Today, this power is more present than ever. Silent manipulation is everywhere, from the choices we make when consuming products to the way we think about the world. Do you think you're choosing for yourself? The truth is that you're just reacting. And that is the greatest danger of silent manipulation. It doesn't require resistance because you never realize you're being manipulated. Silent manipulation can be devastating, but the most dangerous part is that the damage it causes is invisible. Often victims don't realize what's happening until it's too late. This type of control is so effective because it leaves no visible marks, no obvious signs that something is wrong. It's a gradual transformation that begins to shape our choices, actions, and even our feelings without us noticing. One of the most notable effects of silent manipulation is the mass shift in opinion. With the use of social media, manipulated news and algorithms, large groups of people can be led to change their opinions without realizing they are being guided toward it. It's not that someone is yelling in your face to make you think a certain way. No, what happens is that small pieces of information, which often seem neutral or harmless, start to shape your worldview. Silent manipulation is also one of the main drivers of invisible political influence. How many times have you found yourself arguing about a political issue and realized your opinion already seemed formed without knowing how or why? That's exactly how silent manipulation works. You believe you're making your own decisions, but the news, memes, social media posts, and even the way information is presented to you are all designed to shape your beliefs and attitudes without you realizing it. If this content made you think differently, it's already worth a like, don't you think? It's just one click, but it means a lot to me. Machiavelli already understood that politics is an art of perception and manipulation. He said that the most effective leader is not the one who imposes his will explicitly, but the one who gets people to act according to his will without them knowing. Silent manipulation can also be seen in abusive relationships, where one partner uses emotional control to dominate the other. In this scenario, the victim is not physically forced to do anything, but begins to question their own perceptions and choices. The manipulator doesn't need to shout or force obedience. He simply sows doubt, makes the other person believe their reactions are wrong or exaggerated, and begins to shape their emotions. This type of control is sneaky, and when the victim finally realizes it, they are already in a state of total emotional dependence. Machiavelli knew that true power often lies in making others believe they are acting of their own free will, which is exactly what happens in an emotionally manipulative, abusive relationship. Another major harm caused by silent manipulation is from companies that create false needs. How do you react when you see a new product on the market? Often, marketing doesn't just try to sell a product, it creates a desire within you, a desire you didn't know you had until you were influenced. By advertising, you think you're making a conscious purchasing decision, but in reality, silent manipulation made you believe something was necessary when it actually wasn't. The concept of created necessity is one of the most powerful tools used to manipulate people in mass. And Machiavelli, with his keen insight into power, already knew this. He said that whoever controls people's needs controls their actions, even without being noticed. Modern marketing is a clear reflection of this. Big corporations spend millions creating ads that don't just try to sell products, but try to change how you think about what you need. They don't say, "You need this." They make you believe you need it, manipulating your desire in an almost imperceptible way. You're not making the decision for yourself. You're reacting to what has been carefully planned for you. The worst part, you don't even realize it's happening. All of this happens in silence. No shouting, no coercion, no obvious manipulation. Silent manipulation is invisible, and that's why it's the most dangerous and the most disturbing. And part of all is that in the end, you believe you're making your own choices. You think you're thinking for yourself, that you're being rational. But in truth, you're just responding to stimuli that were strategically placed for you without you even having a chance to notice what's happening. Machiavelli, with his political sharpness, already knew this. He understood that the most effective control is the one that's not perceived, the one that hides in the shadows where no one sees the game being played. He said that whoever can hide their intentions and disguise their manipulation will always have the advantage because no one opposes what they can't see. Silent manipulation is a powerful but extremely dangerous tool because it leaves no trace, generates no resistance. It infiltrates your ideas and choices so subtly that by the time you finally realize what's happening, you're already completely immersed in the game. And the worst part is that while you're reacting, whoever is behind it is controlling your actions without you knowing. The impact is deep, affecting your political choices, personal relationships, and even your way of consuming. Silent manipulation is not just about influencing actions, it's about changing how you perceive the world around you without you having any awareness of it. Today, maybe right now, you are being manipulated, and you don't even know it. Not by shouting, not by direct orders, but by algorithms, headlines, and even by people close to you. It's silent manipulation in action. And as Machiavelli anticipated, this is the most effective form of control, the one that makes you believe you're in charge, when in fact, you're just reacting. Think about social media algorithms. They're not just showing you random content. They're shaping what you see based on what you already believe. What does that cause? A closed loop where you only consume ideas that reinforce your convictions. It feels like you're staying informed, but in reality, you're being fed what keeps you trapped. Machiavelli would smile at this. After all, to him, true power is exercised without resistance. And the headlines. Notice how they're written. Many times, their goal isn't to inform, but to provoke. Fear, anger, outrage, strong emotions grab attention. And when you're emotionally involved, you're much easier to lead. The focus shifts from logic to impulse. The manipulator no longer needs to convince. They just need to trigger the right buttons. And once again, Machiavelli would be there, silently approving. In relationships, this manipulation can be even more subtle. Sometimes it comes disguised as compliments, other times as emotional threats. Have you ever heard phrases like, "I'm only doing this because I care about you"? It may seem like affection, but often it's control. It's someone shaping your actions based on guilt they created. You start giving in little by little, without realizing you're giving up your freedom. That's the Machiavellian art, to dominate without appearing as a dominator. Machiavelli believed the ideal ruler should understand human nature deeply, and that's exactly what we see today. Systems and people who understand our emotions and desires so well, they can guide us without us even noticing. They know when we're vulnerable. They know what irritates us. They know how to make it seem like the idea was ours when it never was. It's scary to think about, but necessary. Because while we believe we're in control, we're being manipulated by our own certainties. Freedom, in this context, is not choosing between options given by someone else. It's knowing those options were carefully placed there to seem like free choices. That's what makes silent manipulation so dangerous. Now stop and think, how many of your recent decisions were truly yours? That opinion you defended so confidently, could it have been shaped by something you saw, read, or heard? Repeatedly? That's the essence of silent manipulation. It creeps in slowly, filling spaces you didn't even know were empty. And when you notice, it's already too late. You're already acting, feeling, and choosing under the influence of something you thought was spontaneous. Today's manipulators don't wear crowns or carry swords. They use data, emotional language, and empty promises. They hide behind brands, slogans, influencers, and even institutions. And the most brilliant part, they don't need you to see them as manipulators. They just need you to trust, to click, to share. Machiavelli, if he were alive, would say the modern prince is the algorithm. It doesn't need your approval, it just needs your attention, and it will get it because it knows you, maybe even better than you know yourself. Silent manipulation has conquered time, and today it's more alive than ever. If this content made you see the world differently, then imagine what else is coming. Here, we expose what no one wants you to notice. Subscribe now and always stay one step ahead of manipulation, because understanding the game is the first step to getting out of it. Confirmation bias, groupthink, emotional exhaustion, fear, these are the most effective tools of invisible manipulation, and almost no one realizes they're being affected by them. The scariest part is that this kind of manipulation doesn't shout, doesn't impose, it whispers. And in that whisper, it takes control. Let's start with confirmation bias. It's the mechanism that makes you seek out information that reinforces what you already believe, and reject everything that challenges your worldview. Even when the evidence shows otherwise, you'll choose the comfort of repetition over the discomfort of doubt. That's powerful. And Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He knew that truth, when it wounds pride, is usually ignored. That's why great manipulators never try to convince you of the opposite. They just reinforce what you already want to believe. Now think about groupthink. Have you ever changed your opinion just because everyone around you thought differently? Have you ever stayed silent in a conversation even though you disagreed with everything, just to avoid being excluded? That's groupthink. When the majority believes in something, psychological pressure pushes you in the same direction, even if it's wrong. Machiavelli said that to control a people, you only need to make them suppress those who think differently. And that happens every day, on social media, at work, among friends. Anyone who disagrees becomes a target, and the fear of rejection makes you slowly align yourself with what others say. Without realizing it, your opinion is no longer your own. Let's talk about emotional exhaustion. Have you noticed how we're constantly surrounded by negative news, tragedies, scandals, and crises? That's no accident. Emotional exhaustion weakens you, and when you're tired, scared, and anxious, you don't question, you accept. Machiavelli wrote that in times of chaos, people beg for order, even if it comes from a tyrant. The manipulator creates the problem, offers the solution, and wins your loyalty. He doesn't need to shout orders, he just needs you to be emotionally vulnerable. And fear, it's the greatest accelerator of manipulation. Fear distorts your judgment. It makes you believe in any promise of protection. It makes you follow leaders you would never follow in times of peace. Fear builds mental prisons with the keys on the outside, and you don't even try to escape. Machiavelli understood this better than most. He said it's better to be feared than loved, if you can't be both. Because fear paralyzes, and the paralyzed obey. All these mechanisms together create a kind of invisible track. You're slowly trained to think within boundaries you didn't choose, to consume content that reinforces your beliefs, to follow voices that validate your feelings, to avoid the discomfort of change, and in the end, you believe you had an original idea, when in fact, it was carefully planted. This is the essence of invisible manipulation. It doesn't command, it shapes. And when you stop questioning, when you accept everything as natural, as right, as obvious, it doesn't need to try anymore. The manipulation is already complete. Today, politicians, influencers, and large corporations don't shout orders. They whisper ideas. And without realizing it, you repeat those ideas as if they were your own. Machiavelli, centuries ago, had already anticipated this. True power is not in ruling by force, but in controlling the narrative. And that narrative now comes wrapped in short videos, viral headlines, harmless posts, and emotional speeches. You believe you're forming your own opinion, but it was shaped before you even clicked. Algorithms decide what you see, and whoever controls what you see controls what you think. Machiavelli didn't die. He simply traded the quill for an algorithm. He lives behind the scenes of social media, political campaigns, and even in trends that seem spontaneous. Control is where you least expect it. In the words chosen, the emotions stirred, in the illusion of choice. This is where the turning point begins. You are not powerless, but you need to wake up. First, question what seems obvious. The obvious may have been constructed. Second, get out of the bubble. Read opposing opinions. Seek different sources. Third, observe the patterns. Those trying to convince you always use the same weapons. Fear, guilt, promises. Ask yourself, is this really my thought? Or is it a reflection of something that was pushed onto me? Freedom begins with questioning. When you recognize the strings that pull you, you start to move by your own will. True freedom begins when you recognize the strings. Machiavelli knew the most effective control is the one that feels like freedom. The most dangerous form of control is the one you never see. You might be getting manipulated right now, at this very moment, not with screams, but with smiles, not with orders, but with good intentions. The question remains, are you truly free, or are you just following the path that was lit for you? If this opened your eyes, like the video, subscribe to the channel. And above all, never stop questioning.